Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Wednesday, March the 12th. And welcome to our commentary. Well, they had a vote in Greenland. They had a vote. It's interesting. It's a huge country, geography that is, and they got 57,000 people. And apparently they had a pretty good turnout. And what they call the center right party came out ahead. Now, these are parliamentary elections where they have three parties and they're going to have to, put parties together to create a government, that kind of thing. But so, we'll see how it comes out. But the message, and lots of people are concluding this, the message is that the people of Greenland want to stay fairly independent or free. And that creates, I think, some great opportunities for the United States to sit down with them and talk to them about what we can do in terms of investment and business opportunities to promote their country. They have tremendous minerals in Greenland, tremendous deposits of minerals, and they have some great coastlines. And I can see, I can see Greenland turning into a great tourist paradise. I mean, if it's properly developed. So, I'm just simply saying I'm not predicting one thing or another, but I do think that the people there definitely want to stay independent, but they also want some economic development. That clearly came out in the vote. So we'll keep an eye on Greenland. But who would have ever thought that we would be talking about Greenland? I mean, it's just fascinating what's going on in the world. Well, there's a lot of talk about the economy, and I think a lot of it is politically motivated, meaning it's a lot of people who are trying to push a political idea, not necessarily know what's going on with the economy. There's so many bits of information. Everybody's focused on the market, but the stock market, that is. But the reality is that there has been no market crash. And today, the markets closed a lot better. I think the Dow Jones still had a red, but a very small one, less than 100 points, even less than that, I think. So I think it's starting to stabilize a little bit. And that, of course, is what we expect. There was a very good inflation report that came out today that clearly shows that inflation is going down. Even the price of eggs, a couple of weeks ago, that was the talk of the town. Now that's coming down as well. But keep an eye on this one, because I think this is really the key number as far as I'm concerned. The price of oil. The price of oil keeps dropping. That is how you get prices down. The more the price of oil drops and the more that we unleash production, that's the other thing. That hasn't really started yet. So I would argue, or I would say to everybody, just kind of keep your political posturing down. I think there's a lot of politics going on here. A lot of people, I mean, I heard this ridiculous report that Biden handed Trump a pretty good economy and that Trump has messed it up in 7 weeks. Well, first of all, if Biden had a good economy, Kamala Harris would have won the election. Kamala Harris would have won the election if the economy was good. If the American people were feeling good about the economy, Kamala Harris would have won the election. She'd be president right now. So I don't think that economic argument works, that everything was fine and then they turned it over to Trump and Trump is messing it up in 7 weeks. I mean, that just doesn't wash. Now, there were other issues in the campaign. The economy was one of them. I think there were lots of other issues. Immigration was an issue, the border. I think some of these cultural issues, like men playing in women's sports and stuff like that, I think a lot of that has also turned bad for the Democrats. I think they completely overestimated the abortion issue. Abortion did not play for them the way they thought they were going to play, because most women do not believe that abortion should be unconditional. It's one thing to say a woman has the right to have an abortion or there should be a window for an abortion. It's quite another thing to say abortion unconditionally. Most women don't believe that. So I think the Democrats overplayed the abortion card, and these cultural issues about men playing in women's sports and that kind of thing, that just didn't go well for them either. So there were lots of issues. The economy was clearly one. I think foreign policy was another one. So But my point is that I think everybody needs to calm down a little bit and give this Trump plan a little bit more time. I think Trump is in the right direction. I really do. I like what he's doing with respect to tariffs. That becomes effective on April 2nd. This is when we do reciprocal, meaning you pay what you charge us. If you charge us 10%, we're going to charge you 10%. That seems fair to me. Completely fair to me. And if you want to eliminate tariffs, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. You say you pay 10, okay, we're going to charge you 10. Or we pay 10, okay, you're going to pay 10%. I think that's the best way to do it. That's also a very effective way of negotiating tariffs, so you don't have to, do an entire agreement or anything. You just do, commodity or issue by issue. I think that's the best way. So I think everybody needs to come down a little bit. It's not the end of the world. These markets have not gone off the rail. And today, in fact, 2 out of the 3 indicators were positive, and the Dow Jones was still in the red, but not by much, not by much. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. But I think there's a little bit too much politics in this economic analysis. I like the fact that inflation is down, and I like the fact that energy prices are down. And I like the fact that all indications are that energy will continue to come down. That is how you drive prices down, when you bring that energy cost down. And we haven't even started to, drill baby drill hasn't even started yet, to the extent that I think it will be. So I believe all of this is going to look very different in 6 months. I really do. And then we'll see. We'll see. I mean, eventually Trump is going to be judged on the economy. So let's not kid ourselves. I know that. But I think it's way too early right now to start jumping on these conclusions that everything was great, and now he messed it up in 7 weeks. That is completely silly, totally silly. A couple of quick things. The continuing regulation continuing regulation, or CR as they call it, resolution, did pass the House. It's now in the Senate. Apparently, they don't have the votes to make it out of the Senate because they need 60 votes. So we may have a government shutdown. I think the Democrats are going to regret that. They're going to regret that, not just politically, but they're going to regret what Trump is going to be able to do with basically the government shutdown. He may be able to make a lot of changes in these departments because, there is no budget or no operation, and he may be able to do some things that he cannot do if the government was operating. The smart thing for the Democrats to do would be to pass the resolution and then argue about the budget over the next 6 months. That's the smart thing. But, a lot of the Democrat Party these days is, if Trump says hi, we say low. If Trump says yes, we say no. Remember that song by the Beatles? I say yes, you say no, I say hi, and you say low. I say hello, you say goodbye. Remember that song by the Beatles? That's what this is all about. This is simply this hysterical opposition of Trump. It's not helping them, but anyway, that's where we are. And with respect to the Department of Education, I completely agree that it needs to be shut down. Now, Trump is not going to be able to do it by executive order. He's going to need a vote of Congress, and more than likely that's not going to happen with the Congress. He'll get it in the House, but he's not going to get the Senate to get the 60 votes to do it. But, that could be a campaign issue in 2026, the possibility of some Republican pickups in the Senate the next time around. And I actually do think that more and more states are going to be calling for the elimination of the Department of Education, because it really hasn't done anything to help education. It hasn't. I mean, when you have these test scores that we're seeing, what exactly has the Department of Education done? The answer is not much. So I think you'll see a lot of states call for the elimination of the Department of Education. You're already seeing, for example, school choice booming. We're about to get school choice here in Texas anytime in the next 30 days when the legislature votes for it and the governor signs it. At the moment, something like 11% of all the children in the United States are going to homeschooling. So the parents are clearly rejecting through their vote, by voting for school choice, And by schooling kids at home, the parents are rejecting the public school system that we now have. So why in the world would the Democrats defend the Department of Education or the current education bureaucracy? There's only one reason: the teachers union. That's the only reason, the teachers union. So anyway, I don't think it's going to end well for them, but we'll see. I still hold maybe a prayer that they will pass the continuing resolution sometime. Hopefully, the Democrats will come to their senses and go along with a continuing resolution so that we can move and debate all of this. Really, not just move, but debate all these things over the next 6 months. A couple of quick things on this day in history. It was on this day that President Truman, this goes back to 1947, President Truman announced what would eventually be called the Truman Doctrine. And the Truman Doctrine was basically the containment of communism. That's what it was. And that's what gave us the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union. And you had Korea, you had Vietnam, you had Cuba, you had Central America, the whole conflict between communism and freedom. And it was all because of the Truman Doctrine. It was the policy of the United States to contain communism. And that was called the Truman Doctrine. And that was the policy really until the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991. And it was on this day in 1933 that President Roosevelt had his first fireside chat. This is when he would go on the radio and talk to the American people. Of course, this was in the middle of the Depression. And it was a very effective tool. It became a very effective communication tool for the president to go into the living room of people. Remember, back then, people would sit around the radio and listen to the radio like we do with TV now. And President Roosevelt was very effective at using the fireside chats to talk to the American people and explain to them what he was doing about the Great Depression and how we were supposed to keep our self-confidence and so on. Very effective speeches, or fireside chats, as they were called. FDR on the radio began on this day in 1933. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.